All I'm saying after the last 48 hours is I need to watch a good movie because
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I had 3 straight balls.
Yeah.
What were your other two?
I watched Artemis Fowl on Disney Plus, and then I watched it was on Netflix, and it was one of those where the pedigree going in was like, yes. It was called The Last Thing That He Wanted with Ben Affleck and Anne Hathaway and Willem Dafoe and some other folks, Toby Jones, and it was I think it's based on a book, but it was
Not good.
like great source, but amateur hour, everything else. It was real hard to watch. Yeah.
So like in terms of like good content, can we like hear it for Eric on that the Photoshop skills for Funkoizing all of us? Yeah.
Yeah. Those look
Thank you.
way better than I would have thought they could look.
Oh,
It was good, man. Yeah.
I think they're so good we'll probably get sued immediately.
Yeah, I was like, where can I buy? Please don't sue me.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for being here. This is exciting. So we got a couple of new things happening. Number one was we're trying out a new thumbnail situation. I think I like the thumbnail. It's pretty goofy. But the biggest news is that we are all 4 of us officially, we are Funko Pop figures. I mean,
Funko Pop.
Funko. Eric made
Funko
us
smack.
as Funko figures.
We're
and
Cunfoed.
Confode.
if you go to our YouTube to watch this, you can see it on the banner. We're going to have to work with the sizing, though, I think, because there's a couple things that with the film strip aspect of it didn't quite fit into the square.
Right,
So we'll get in there. We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But it looks really cool, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very happy with it.
I was telling my parents, I said, I've always known that Eric was talented. I always know he's talented. But then he does something like this. I'm just like, you're just really good at things.
Yeah, did you hear that, everyone? Throw money at me, but don't make me do stuff.
That's the
Just
moral
give
of
me
the
money.
story. Throw some
Just
money at him.
Donate money to me, and I'll do something with it.
If we can't, actually, let me just show people who are watching. So I always put the thumbnail now on the back of my screen just in case I do that, so you can see how ridiculous it all looks.
Oh, yeah,
But
you flipped over the last episode. I was looking down
Oh,
for
yeah.
a second, and I was like, is he checking his email? What the hell?
Yeah. I had to. I saw that our connection was getting bad, so I closed my. I closed the editing program so that it wasn't taking up any space.
Gotcha.
So here's our Funkos. This is just our heads, but we do have full bodies with little props. It's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. We look fantastic. The chin hair, Eric, is remarkably accurate on Nico.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Nico, you maybe
love it.
took the longest just to like really nail your look. To where I was like, okay, yeah, I gotcha. But
Oh,
Yeah.
you pegged it. I showed it to Andrea, and she's like, oh, it's your uniform. It's adorable. Like, okay.
I love how you caught just how messy my hair always looks, because I don't own a hairbrush at all. I haven't owned a hairbrush in probably a good 10 years, and you completely captured that. So
what's that hair was Cassian Andor with a little bit like added back into the back.
even
side.
better.
That's nice. It's amazing.
And our viewers can't see it right now, but I love the Easter egg on my hoodie.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we'll have to maybe next week we'll put up the full ones. I'll get the full ones and we'll show everybody. It looks pretty amazing. All right, let me get back to our screen here. There we go. Well, everyone, welcome to the show.
Yeah, say hello if you're in chat. We're not shy.
Yeah, please say hello. Love to hear from you. So I was thinking about what to say about Vampire's Kiss to start off the show. And the first thing that came to my mind was in the 1994 film Tombstone. My favorite, probably Eric's favorite. Hopefully all of our favorites of the two released that year about Tombstone.
As opposed to Wyatt Earp with
Yeah.
Kevin Costner.
There's Kevin Costner. Yeah,
Yeah, Kevin Costner.
it was Costner and Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid. That's
Yeah.
Doc Holliday. Yeah.
In that movie, there's a moment at the end of after Wyatt's brother dies and they're out and they go out and they just thrash everything. They just go out and they kill all of the bad guys that were involved in the crime of killing Wyatt's brother. And Turkey Creek Jack Johnson was his name. They're about to part ways, and he was one of his pals going out killing everybody, and he looks at Wyatt and he goes, "I ain't got the words." That's how I feel about Vampire's Kiss. I don't know what to say. I ain't got the words.
And I'll just say, I know.
When the shooting starts, head for the border. I think that was the line after.
The shooting starts early in this one,
Yep.
so to speak.
Well, in the round table of things, we try to be somewhat democratic. I'll move myself back up there. This was Eric's choice. So
Oh, yeah.
you get the first word on Vampire's Kiss. What do you think of that movie?
So I should preface that years ago I caught a YouTube video. Someone did a supercut of all the crazy Nicolas Cage moments in films,
Right.
called Nicolas Cage Loses His Shirt, I think is what it's called. And this movie's pretty heavily featured, but I didn't know what it was. The alphabet scene, all these different things, him screaming boo-hoo dramatically,
So good.
all these wonderful, bizarre things. And so fast forward maybe a couple years after that, now maybe, I don't know, 4 years ago, and I catch this Nicolas Cage movie on TV about 30 minutes in, and I start watching and I start going, oh, this is that movie with those scenes. Oh boy, I'm going to watch this and see what happens. And it's just the wackiest thing that I've ever seen. And,
amazing.
so already people go, oh, Nicolas Cage, he can be a charismatic weirdo, he's kind of fearless on camera and he can give wacky performances, but this one, he just goes all out.
Yeah.
And is allowed to go all out, and it's great. It takes a movie that would have just disappeared, been completely forgotten about, still is, despite him.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's definitely worth rediscovering, because I think it should kind of be a cult classic in some way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that
Well,
status.
1988. If you think about some of the movies that came out around that time, one of them would have been the original Batman reboot, the Michael Keaton movie. And so you can just put that on that, just put that in your back pocket and just think, okay, that was the same time that Batman was coming out, so you kind of know what to expect a little bit. But I thought it would be interesting because you brought up the Nicolas Cage, the sort of the mashup of his stuff. If you look at what he did just before, would have been Peggy Sue Got Married, Raising Arizona, Moonstruck, and then Vampire's Kiss. Now, I didn't do enough, maybe you guys did, research on what he did before that, or if he shot this before those or after those. We don't know, because by the quality of the movie, I could definitely guess that maybe the movie was made before all of that and just never got released until he was kind of
Just
famous.
pushed, and then they went, oh, okay, let's plug it. Moonstruck, did he get nominated for an Oscar?
Yeah.
So it's there's that. He's legit. Raising Arizona, people love his weirdness, and then this movie. It's he's running away from success or something. Yeah. But you might be right, where maybe it was filmed and just sitting. And the studio went, we don't know what to do with this, because certainly with the trailer, if you watch the trailer, they're pitching as this quirky comedy, because they're what do we do with this thing?
Yeah.
Well,
Because it definitely felt like that because of my little bit of experience in the casting world is in probably early on enough he had to be kind of thrown around a little bit, where it was probably Moonstruck or Raising Arizona were about to come out. They hadn't come out yet, but there was a bunch of hype around it. And so here was this other movie that either came along before or after, but it could be, if we dug deep enough, found out that it was in a very, very lucky place to come out afterwards because it probably no one would have ever seen it if it had come out before Raising Arizona, you know. So, and chances are it was shot before that because I don't know if there'd be any other way that that movie would come out with Nicolas Cage after.
But that's Nicolas Cage. I think he has no problem going there. And I feel like this movie, he like won an Independent Spirit Award or something? Like people looked at this and went, it's like experimental. And that's how people were like looking at it, like that wanted to praise it as something unique, which is definitely should be praised as unique. Doesn't mean it's good. But I think it's just like even now, like you watch Mandy, you watch different movies.
Yeah.
Like if someone says, "Hey, Nicolas Cage," if a director says, "Go nuts," he'll go, "All right," and just go there. He has no problem going to 11 and being like fearless and not giving a crap how it comes out and what people think about it. I don't think he gives a crap. So that's just him.
No.
And so this movie is the right director and him and not enough money is what it sounded like. The little bit of research I did was that they were not throwing much money to do what the director thought needed to be done. So they were just like, hey, plan B.
I think in some cases they didn't have enough money for lights. There were some scenes where I was like, they didn't even light this one. It's just not even a thing. But I watched it last night. Brian, Nick, when did you guys watch it today?
Today, yeah. I wanted to be fresh.
I love it. How do you feel?
Well, you know, for me, it's one of those movies where it was so weird and goofy and off the wall and frankly for the most part so bad that I actually enjoyed myself. I mean right. Going back to Nicolas Cage, the funny thing, who was supposed to play this role and dropped out? Dennis Quaid.
Oh man.
And apparently the cockroach, that was Nicolas Cage idea. It was supposed to be a raw egg. I spent probably
You switched it from a raw egg to a cockroach?
Yeah. He did it,
really
and he did it twice. He did it twice.
Yeah.
You eat a real one?
Yeah,
They pretty much got him in one shot, I think, and the director was like, let's just get another one for security. And he's like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean...
We're talking about the fact that he ate a roach in the movie. Yeah. Unreal.
Matt, I'll echo your sentiment that there definitely were no words for a while, and I didn't pick up for some reason, I didn't, maybe it's because I was so just taken aback by the whole thing, I didn't pick up for a long time that he's actually just mentally ill, spoilers, and there is no vampire, and I'm like, oh, now I get it, because it was just, this movie was like the definition of Nicolas Cage. This is Nicolas Cage at his most Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It was pretty bad and weird, but I also laughed a lot. I don't know if I was actually laughing at jokes or just laughing at really poor acting and poor script and but
there was a lot of laugh out loud moments for me. There were actual, but not like, not because it was like, oh, that's brilliant. It's because you just like, how does an actor have the balls to act like that? Well, how do you do that?
Right.
That's what made me laugh out loud.
And and apparently, he's a method actor, and so that must have been ridiculous being around Nicolas Cage for 2 to 3 months.
I gotta wear my teeth the whole time. I'm sorry.
Well, and like the accent he was doing, I was like, where is this accent coming from? It dawned on me. That accent is like Jeremy Strong from The Gentleman doing Marlon Brando.
Yeah, that's great. Eric's favorite actor.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Performance.
I enjoyed it because it was just laughing at the world burning. Oh, that's a poor choice of words right now. But
it's
all
but
right.
yeah,
New York in the 80s, not delightful.
Yeah.
Bring up my notes here.
But I also agree. Those other movies must have either come out or they were getting ready to come out, and so there was enough hype around them. Like, yeah, let's do this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think, Nico?
Well, no. So you have to remember that it takes place. It's in the 80s. Like, it's an 80s movie in the 80s about the 80s. So, it went that road. And almost what it made me think about was stuff that always makes me laugh about movies from the 80s is like in Back to the Future when they throw Marty in the trunk of the musician's car, and they get out. And he gets out. He's like, "What are you doing?" And then they get out, and there's weed smoke comes out. They're like, "Oh, we don't want to mess with the reefer heads." Like, okay, so nobody understands what marijuana is. There's also a movie with John Ritter, and I just looked it up, and I totally spaced the title of it. But it's called Naked Step or something like that. But again, it's another thing where he tries to get back with like his girlfriend or his wife, and she says, "I'll only do it if you're clean," because he smokes weed. And then they put him in there, and he has like a train spotting montage where he's like climbing on the ceiling and all this stuff. So it's like people just didn't understand drugs, I think.
Right.
So this movie, so I didn't pick up on the make believe part until the mirror scene where he's like, I can't see myself, and he could see himself. I was like, okay, so he's just crazy at this point. But what did get me, though, was the therapist not being real. That one, I didn't see that coming at all. That one was like an honest surprise, but was a great scene where our thumbnail's taken from. That is a great scene. That's a great little like tie up of all of this insanity, and it was like I had issues in general too with just like the accent I didn't understand.
Nobody did.
Yeah, it's not effeminate, and it's not American. Like, it's not a bad European accent. It's just like some weird, like almost Southern. It's like if somebody translated something into Southern from like New Zealand. I don't know. It's real hard to put together.
It was like a transatlantic accent every now and then. So Nicolas Cage was doing this accent through the whole movie. That was, it was New York City. You thought maybe he was kind of doing something bougie, but it sounded like the old the transatlantic one, which was, very, the common in the 50s, 60s. The sort of voice like everything like
the
presidential speeches.
Yeah.
Where it's sort of like you have this sort of, and it was almost like John F. Kennedy. Sort of an accent
mixed with
like
surfer dude,
like almost a lisp, like not a lisp but a lisp.
Right.
Well, and then the other thing, the other thing that got me too was I didn't understand what his hard-on was for Alva, the low-level secretary that he has looking like. There's no motivation for him to be cruel and mean to her.
Right.
It's just he's just a dick for no reason.
Horrible from minute one all the way through.
Yeah. It's like it's like, was there supposed to be a message in there, or
I mean, just general theme you could pull, but
anything.
Right.
And so he was just so. I mean, it has some great scenes with her. It was like Maria Conchita Alonso or whatever, which at the time was like skyrocketing. She's Running Man, all that stuff. So it's like, how did you get roped into this trash pile?
And bless her, she puts together a pretty good performance.
Yeah, she does a really good job.
Him.
But and then it was.
Rough.
I mean, it was. We always talk about movies that like adjust your barometer, so allow you to like kind of scope in what is good and what is bad. So you're not just constantly like everything's great. This is a movie where it's like, all right, let's assume for a moment we could make it great. How long is the list of things we have to fix? Because it's an interesting idea about. So people that aren't going to watch it, which is fine. He's a like a publishing manager in New York City for
something
books
like
or something.
Literature. Never really understood what he was. A literary agent is what he would say, but I don't know what that really meant.
So he it opens with him talking to his therapist about basically being like a ladies' man and just like sleeping with women all the time, and then he meets one of them who like instantly just is like vampire and bites him. And it's like, it's not like they had like Bram Stoker sitting on his desk or something, or anything to hint that maybe he's got this. Or no, they have a bat come in with
Pat
the first
comes in
date.
with the first woman he's brings to his place that you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he
and
tells
it's like,
his fake therapist that he's aroused by that.
Right.
yeah, which is super 80s. So then he's convinced that he's being turned into a vampire by Jennifer Beals, which is super funny because when the movie was originally shot, it was grainy enough that you couldn't tell that she was wearing like a fake bra the whole time.
Right.
But now with like HD and stuff, you're like, oh, that's just really bad. Okay.
Yeah. Like the pasties were
the
like
oversized
so present.
super pasties. Yeah. And then so he goes down this road of being convinced that he's a vampire, and then but then he's like torturing this secretary to find a contract when he gets a phone call, which is another actually really good scene where he's like, I can't believe you didn't find us. Now, like, you're gonna sit here. It's almost like Wall Street. Like, you're gonna sit here and watch me do this dance so we don't lose this account. And then on the other end of the phone, the guy's like, yeah, it's no big deal. Just whenever you can get to it.
I know you
But
guys
then
are busy. I just want it framed for my...
Yeah, but then he lays into her like,
Yeah.
as you can see, I clearly didn't get a word in edgewise.
I couldn't get a word in edgewise.
Yeah. So it's like you'd have to institute some sort of motivation for that because there is none.
I know.
There's none.
I kind of love that
Whatsoever.
there's none. He's just an a-hole. And
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
all right. I guess he just is
Yeah.
using his power over this poor, like, woman, this minority that's like the bottom of the totem pole, he literally says, and just decides to be horrible to her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Day
and
after day.
it's clearly it's you
Yeah.
find out in the end that he's just mentally unstable.
Well,
And
that's
Which it
one
Go
thing
ahead.
about this movie and that whole tie-in is how much, when I had watched this movie, it's like, oh, this is this weird precursor to American Psycho.
that's exactly
Okay.
what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yep. It was like a true 80s movie because I think American Psycho was 2000.
Yeah.
And so they were playing the 80s. But this is the actual 80s version of American Psycho
that's
done
a good point. That's a good
poorly, but it's exactly what it is. Yeah. Because it was the same thing. It's like, just shut up. We're trying to do drugs over here. Like American Psycho funny thing. But this was not funny in the right ways. In fact, if you had made this movie today with Joaquin Phoenix, everybody would probably be drooling over it as this movie
easy.
about mental health.
Easy.
Don't you think, though?
Oh, yeah.
If it was done well, if it was done satirically, it might actually be a good movie because it did just address the fact that this guy was super mentally unstable. At that time, probably would have called him paranoid schizophrenic. Now he'd call it bipolar or something like that, where he was he would go from 0 to 60 in one direction to the other in his moods, and not
Sure.
was seeing people and pretending.
But
Who
yeah,
knows if
but-
his apartment was even his?
But
at some point.
that reveal of that, like if you want to pull some gems from it, the reveal of the psychosis is super good because he goes full vampire, murders a person, and then when he's walking around, they're giving it like he's just had a bad night. Like it's like it's like 6 a.m. Like that's just what everybody looks like after a long, really, really bad night. And then it turns into this reveal, and you're like, wow, that was super good. That's why it got me with the psychologist or the psychiatrist, because I was just thinking like, man, he's just had this rough night, and that's what it is, and it's not anything more than that. I mean, other than like the vampire being fake thing, which that's even super weird too, because so he meets that girl in that same club where he commits the murder, drinks some blood, and then is like hurling. And then she approaches him, but then all of a sudden is like, "This is my boyfriend, Don. Who like have we met Don before? Did we miss Don somewhere?"
Yeah.
And then they leave, so you're like, "Okay, well that's all fake." And then all of a sudden he goes to the dance floor, and she's there, and he's like, "Do you remember me?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, Peter, right?" It's like,
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so he did sleep with her, but was already in like the vampire fantasy, like. What is going on?
Yeah, and was she just a biter? He just had a night with a biter? Yeah.
Because
Well,
it was
like-
one of. No, go ahead.
Well, it just like when they introduced the Dawn guy, at first I didn't get it then either. I was like, oh well, maybe they're just saying it's like this sexy lady vampire has just moved on to like a new boy toy that
Yeah,
she's also
right.
going to turn. That's what I thought first.
Yeah.
And then, I think so. Yeah, I didn't catch it. Yeah, I didn't catch it all until he's leaning up against talking to the brick wall, and they reveal that she's not real. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that he breaks off a pallet because he's trying to like stab him. He's like to stake himself.
Stake me, I'm a vampire.
And so he's like, he's carrying it, talking to this wall, and then even in his like psychosis, he's still got like the 2x4 with him
Right.
in his own like.
I read something interesting about that. Apparently, they were shooting him from afar, and those weren't actors. Those were just
You
people
could
in the
tell.
street.
You could
Yeah,
tell for
he's just
sure.
running around acting like a nut job.
Because I almost wonder if it was because I thought that exact same thing where like there were some shots, some cityscapes and things like that where I was like, I don't think they had permission to do that shot. And
Yeah.
Definitely
then
not, yeah.
The city stuff where he's walking around, you could tell when he was lit, and then you could tell when he wasn't. And then there was that bit where he was walking across the street. That was
With the
such a
cars.
long lens.
Yeah.
I was like, I bet you. Because I was looking at him and he was like kind of watching for the cars a little bit, even in his crazy acting style.
Yeah.
You could see that he wasn't too sure if these cars were going to stop. And I was like, I bet you they just shot that. They just went out in the street and made him act crazy and shot it like from way far away.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's exactly what they did.
There's,
That's amazing.
So there's a commentary that he and the director made for
Wait,
this.
what?
And I haven't listened to the whole thing,
Yeah.
but there's highlights on YouTube. So I watched a couple of those,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, speaking to just this kind of run and gun, very unofficial flavor, like when he tears his apartment apart and like flips the glass table. That's real glass. Nothing is fake. It's just
Yeah,
just him
for
doing
sure.
that stuff and putting himself at risk. And they're talking about it, and they're just like, yeah, we were just like kind of young and stupid, huh? All the stuff we knew we shouldn't be doing and couldn't do.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Crazy.
Yeah, it made for a good. It made for good though, because when he goes through that rampage, which looked like they just said, "All right, so here's a bunch of stuff. You're upset. Break it.
Here's your apartment. We're
Mm-hmm.
done filming in here. Go to town.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're done with this. We don't need to return any of it.
You've eaten
Just
a
go
cockroach.
nuts.
Let's do it.
This is the
Yeah,
last
and
day
he-
on this set. Yeah.
Yeah, just start smashing
Yeah.
everything, and it's like that was weird too, because it's like a mix between like a manic episode and like a 13-year-old teenage girl who just got dumped by her 15-year-old boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like with the apartment at the opening scene where he brings that one chick back and the bat thing happens and she runs out and starts laughing. I'm like, what? And then there's the random
Yeah.
peeping Tom kid. And then he runs out and I'm like, oh, that wasn't their apartment. They just broke into
That's
some.
what I was
Oh,
thinking.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's what it seemed like, is that they
Oh,
just
I've-
actually...
I figured it was his place, but then they were just like, let's go to your place. And so they got in
They
a
were
cab
leaving
to
'cause
go
there
to
was a
her
bat.
place.
Yeah, I mean, I got that later, but at first I was like, wait, what?
Did he just break in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
did they just break into some place? Yeah.
I found it interesting, too, that for a movie in 1988, all of the female characters, with the exception of the blonde lady that he kills in the end, were like Hispanic or mixed race, and like the girls that he was always hitting on or taking back to his apartment. And I thought that was really, because it wasn't like something that was prominent or talked about or anything like that. It was just sort of like his type, and they just always kind of had that happening. And the crowded club, like there was one moment where at the end they did this big wide shot of the club. I think it's right before Nicolas Cage runs into the vampire girl. And the film, I'll send you guys the picture. I took a picture of it. There's the film crew's in the shot, like not just like
Sure.
oh, I can kind of see somebody, but it's like camera operator and his like first AC or somebody who's like holding the cable is like right behind him, and they're like clearly getting some other like B-roll while they're shooting this wide shot. It was amazing. It's like these guys, because I would venture a guess that
behind
it
the
was a real
scenes
club.
on-
Yeah. That they were just like just go get whatever, we'll just deal with it.
Yeah,
Like we got to
for sure.
get in and get out sort of thing. Like they were going guerrilla style. Would not have surprised me. It was hilarious.
The thing that caught me too, and letting it kind of marinate for a bit, was the runtime is like an hour and 40 minutes or something. They tell a pretty long story and have some pretty decently long scenes, and like the scene count is really high. But I also noticed that there's a ton of B-roll. There's a whole part where he is sleeping in the couch coffin, hashtag couch coffin, and
You're welcome.
like they literally show it go like a full day-night cycle in New York City, which is weird because we already kind of knew where he was. So it's not like you would need to establish this, other than all you have to do is show the sun setting. You don't need to do like the sunrise, busy streets, twin towers, helicopter flying around for some reason, and then like a bat in the air.
Because I'm guessing that the script was probably like 60, 70 pages. And so they were just like, we got to do a real slow push into the skyline.
Right, but
we got to fill it in.
But what I'm getting at, though, is like even though they did this like super long B-roll scene, they still had a pretty lengthy story. Like I don't know how they did it. Like whether it's pacing or just having long cuts, but something happened where it felt really long, but it was actually really short, even to the point that they had to fill in a bunch of stuff. That was impressive. I'm not saying that like we've become best friends and I love this movie. I'm just saying like some of the stuff that they've done.
I think that's what you're saying. Okay.
5
out of 5 from
truly, it's truly really like impressive, but then it's immediately shot down when he fires 2 blanks into his mouth, which was like, go for it, but ow.
Well, and obviously those weren't actual blanks. Just
because they would have blown his head out.
Yeah, because he would have actually died. But it was an amazing film full of just unbelievable acting. Like even though it was completely over the top and out of control and absurd, you have to be pretty brave to do what he did.
Yeah.
And to go that crazy
more than
and
once,
that nuts.
too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Just that bit where he's sitting on the floor and he's crying and he literally says, "Boo." And he finds a way to do it 2 times and he's crying. It's just the most insane acting I've ever seen. Is it like if you like just took Christopher Walken and Al Pacino and smushed them together and then gave them all the
Robin
cocaine.
Williams.
Yeah, and just said, "Here you go make a thing." That's what it was. It was Pacino before Pacino, but like
Try
crazy.
and challenge yourself. And even in that in Nicolas Cage talking about the movie, in that moment he was like, I wanted to see if I could actually get away with saying boo-hoo and have it work.
Yeah.
And he's laughing. He's laughing about it on this commentary. He's just like, what am I doing here? What's that? What's this over here? Like the whole time he's just like, why am I doing that?
It was amazing. He did like the old 50s movie star run too, when he's kind of running away from his apartment. And there's just this way that like they would run kind of with the T-Rex arms, and he did that and just crazy stuff. But the part that I laughed out loud the hardest was, so in the movie, Nicolas Cage has decided that he's a vampire. He's so he goes to like a black market, like, you know, store in like Chinatown or something like that, and he's gonna go buy, because he's a vampire. He needs vampire teeth.
Yep.
So the guy, the old man at the counter, gives him like an option of these beautiful like porcelain realistic looking teeth or these really plastic fake chompers, and he goes for the plastic fake chompers. And
because he doesn't have a credit card, I guess.
No,
there's like multiple
right,
times where I'm
like
like,
that.
where's his credit card?
Yeah.
Doesn't this guy have money? And he like has to look, I don't have any cash on me.
Well,
I'll take the
like I
plastic.
read there, and I was like, "Oh, that's another reason for him to be mad at Alva, because he burned all his cash on the cab rides."
Oh, right.
Yeah, to go
that's
get her,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah. But then he calls his therapist and he's trying to get her in early. He's like, when you good next week? But he's talking through these fake teeth. And she goes, well, how about Tuesday at 1 o'clock? And he just repeatedly is going, earlier. When he's saying it with the mouth and in the earlier.
And he's like grabbing the phone, like cuddling it. Like, I need earlier.
I mean, he must have been utterly exhausted at the end of every day of shooting. There's no way that he wasn't completely drained and just done.
Especially after chasing pigeons.
Yeah. Well, like, did you catch the part when he gets the teeth before he goes to the phone and puts them in, and like starts looking around crazy, and then gets down and crawls away?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what?
It was all over the place. Yeah. I wrote myself I was taking notes as I usually do
Yeah, I got some too.
as we watch. And at one point in time, I just wrote, absolutely no direction. What am I missing? Is this a metaphor for something? A modern Greek tragedy? Like, I really was just like, is this a Greek tragedy that's been written into modern day New York, and I'm just missing
Right.
Yeah, it made you feel a little stupid. You're like,
yeah.
I like the light is on at the end of the tunnel for somebody. Why can't I see it? Like, what is the myth that I'm not getting here? But I'm not going to tell my friends that I don't get it. But
Turns out there's nothing to get. He's just crazy.
Yeah.
That turns out to be the moral of the story of this movie.
I feel like the director was having a lot of fun with this, with the world. 'Cause, like, did you guys notice all the random background actors, like the mimes?
The mimes.
And then one time when he goes and calls the chick and it's like, hey, let's meet up. I'm so sorry I bailed on you. And the people walk by in the feather hats and like, but I think that where I laughed out loud the hardest is when he's walking and the camera peds up and there's that lit up cross and then he immediately just drops.
He just falls down out of nowhere. Well, I got to look up, you were saying extras. At one point, David Hyde Pierce pops up. And
I saw that
he's
too.
just in that bar where they're just taking the camera and going across the bar until they settle on him. And David Hyde Pierce says something, and then that's it. And I was like, oh, maybe he's going to be like a secondary character. It's like, no, that was just an under 5 that he had.
It's when he meets.
I'm looking at his IMDb here.
He meets the vampire air quotes for the first time. It's the camera comes in and no, it's not even that. He's
just random.
He's just sitting there at the end. It's the girl who's facing down the bar, and he's sitting there, and he says something, and she's like, blah blah blah, just a conversational thing. But it's David Hyde Pierce, and it comes down, and then it's not, and then it's the guy who's in all the Christopher Guest movies, not Fred Willard, but the
Eugene Levy.
No. He was also in. This is sad. He was in Pitch Perfect. He was the other announcer, like the really misogynistic announcer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's talking to a gentleman, and Nicolas Cage is kind of zoning out, and he says something like, he's talking about Roth IRAs. He's like, you take 2,000, but then you get it.
Oh, John Michael
back.
Higgins. Yeah.
He's like, and you're going to get interest. And the guy's line is, well, who would be interested in that? And then he walks over and starts talking to the girls like, did you get that joke? Or he just sits down and goes, ha, 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 ha. Did you get that joke? Like,
and then it was done. Then the scene was over, right?
Then they ended up back at the apartment, and that was
same sides.
That's all it took, and he got her. Yeah.
The whole movie was full of those things where Nicolas Cage would just do something wacky, and then it would cut to something new. And you're like, what did I just watch, and why can't you stay there? Because that was amazing.
Yeah, I feel like they really fluffed the movie out with that kind of stuff because it kind of would wander all the time.
Oh yeah, so much wandering. The point at which he says the alphabet.
Screams alphabet.
He's having a conversation with his therapist, and the therapist says, because they're looking for this contract at his job, and the therapist said, well, maybe someone misfiled it, and he freaks out. And he's like, I've never misfiled anything in my life. You just file it under the letter. You go alphabetically, and then he just says the alphabet in the most crazy way.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Yeah, and he just keeps going and building different levels through the alphabet. And then, just has a freak out after it. Yeah.
You know what it made me think of? Is it was so Jim Carrey. Like, so much of it is like Ace Ventura.
Oh, sure.
Through that whole thing. I was like, oh, man, he could have had a totally different career. Could have just gone and done all of this stuff and just had a whole entire Ace Ventura type career, because that's what it was.
Would have
it was
done
just
the
wacky.
alphabet talking out of his butt.
Yeah, it would have worked.
That's what Jim Carrey would have done if he had been in this movie.
Can I ask you the alphabet?
But he would like sing the alphabet out of his ass.
Yeah. It's amazing. But I wrote the young guy at the doctor's office. Oh, that when he calls the doctor. So when he's calling the doctor with his teeth and being ridiculous, and then his therapist, who's like 1,000,000 years old, has this like 20-year-old dude just there. Yeah. But what it made me realize, like the 80s was like that though, where like I bet she was like 30 when she was like in that thing. But the 80s were just rough on people, and because fashion wise, clothes, the hair, it just made people look old and awful. Yeah. And so when I saw it, I was like, I mean, it's fine, have a boy toy, like do your thing, but it was just a very funny moment. Well. Yeah. So that whole scene was great because it just made me laugh for both sides of the phone call.
When I saw the young guy, I was like, for a split second, I thought it was like Alva's brother for a second.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what?
The same thought. Yeah.
I was like, what?
Like very similar.
We're going there now? How? What?
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's just there's so much stuff that's like just amazingly 80s, like all the payphones.
Mm-hmm.
It throws in a quarter, and then it's a rotary payphone, which is essentially just an antique impossibility nowadays.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing. No. And then the fact that like he looks him up in the phone book, which I think if you gave a phone book to anybody under 20 right now, they would just be like, I don't know what this is, how is what.
People don't know even how to file things alphabetically.
Yeah.
Let alone look for things in the alphabet.
Yeah. It was there's so much goodness, like so much good time, like a time capsule of the
that's what made it so much fun.
Well,
the way it started out.
Well, and that makes me laugh too, because knowing how like some of the tips and tricks of the way movies are made, they're in that one club, and it's like band, and this is like classic New York, it's like band and then a shoulder width dance floor and then the bar.
Yeah.
And the band is going, and they're talking.
And people are all talking.
It's like, no, you're not.
That's not happening. Yeah.
That's not happening. There's no music coming out of there. We all know it. But it's like there's no way that there's a live band 6 feet from the bar, and people are dancing. And I also do love 80s movies where dancing is involved, because it's so bad.
Yeah, it's real bad.
Especially when they say, like, okay, so everyone, we're going to have music going. I want you to have a good time, lots of energy, dance, and then
sway.
Yeah.
What's the music? We don't know yet. And action.
Not sure.
We'll figure that out in like 6 months. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. The shoulder pads, the way that the clothes were cut and everything are just so absurdly bad. The scene where he's chasing Alva down the stairs, and then she turns and pulls the gun with the blanks in it on him, and he's asking her to kill him, and then he rips her shirt open, and then like does something, like bites her neck or starts kissing her or something like that. And then next thing you know,
tackles her.
Yeah. Next thing you know, she's just asleep. Like she's just out. Like I was like, what happened? What did I miss? Her shoulder pads hit something. What happened? I didn't know what was going on. And she was and I thought maybe she liked it because she was smiling as he like turned her over, and then he just ripped her cross necklace off and walked out of the scene, and that was it. I was like, I had no idea what was going on.
Well, it was funny too, because he never hit her in that scene, right?
No, he hit her once.
Did he? Does he hit? But he kind of kisses on her neck, kind of right, but doesn't really commit to anything. It's still creepy as hell. But
it was a very 80s.
I was going a different angle, because when she's back home and she goes and creepily visits her brother in his room, she's got this like monster bruise on her face, like she got beat up. And I was like, when I saw that bruise, I was like, I get what you're doing, but I don't remember him hitting her. I'm not gonna go watch it again to make sure, but it's like I don't remember him act. I remember him like kind of like grabbing her collar and shaking her a little bit, and then he tore it open. But I don't remember actually like socking her. But
when they were in the weird. When she went into his bedroom, and so it's supposed to be her brother, and he's just like in his underwear in bed, and then she starts crying, so like they start hugging each other, and then he says it's okay, baby. And I'm like, what is going on with this movie? This is getting real weird. But there's a hit in there too that's amazing. So when Nick Cage is going into the club, and he's like getting through the crowd to get into he just randomly punches a guy in the stomach.
Yeah, the bouncer.
Nobody chases him down.
Yeah.
No, is it the bouncer? Because nobody did anything.
Yeah.
No one said anything. No one was like, "Hey, man." They were just like, "It's fine."
Yeah, aside from a couple extras, just like overacting at the moment, like.
Yeah. No one can overact Cage though.
Right.
There's no way no one in that whole movie.
Get that guy out of the shot.
Yeah.
I'm the only one chewing scenery in this movie. But like his whole Nosferatu thing too, just when he's a vampire, all this stuff, and like when he turns back to the camera literally and looks like winks to the camera almost, like I'm gonna get this chick before the woman he bites.
Yeah.
Well, that was super weird because it's like, what was that girl doing back there? It looked like that was like, like a private dining area or something that had been wrapped up, but she was still chilling. And this crazy wide-eyed dude with fake bad vampire teeth, she's like into it. And it's only when he goes for her neck does she sort of get creeped out. It's like, really?
Yeah.
That's where it is? Okay.
Cocaine, you know how that is. But yeah, she's just sitting there and she's like she does a couple of bumps. And I was like, wow, that was a lot of drugs. And then he didn't seem like he could have been strong enough to hold her in that position so he could literally like pierce her jugular and make her die. But that's like the 80s fight thing. There's just like if you watch like Blade Runner was a lot older, but watch like when Harrison Ford's kissing what's her name like in the apartment, it's just real violent and just not delightful. I was like, is that how people really kiss each other in the 80s? Because it doesn't look good.
Or that's how it's like, oh, that's a man taking charge. There we go. And it's just like,
yeah. I think in the commentary, or maybe it was something I read in Blade Runner, she talks about how she has rashes on her face from his stubble from doing that scene.
Sure.
Like, yeah, I could tell it didn't look good at all.
Well, the other
rough one.
Thing about the club scene is after, like, we reveal that, Jennifer Beals character isn't the vampire. He's just a crazy person. But, like, they're all, like, he's, like, climbing all over and they're trying to drag him out. And, like, is no one alarmed that his, like, shirt is covered with blood?
Right.
No.
All over his face
worried.
and his white shirt. And then we see in the morning that a chick got killed there.
And then the fact that once he's thrown out of... Yeah, I think it's just Manhattan. Everyone's like, nobody cares. We're all here to party. Yeah. We don't give a crap. But, like, he gets thrown out of the club. He's like, I bit somebody. I'm a vampire. He's, like, yelling it, and everyone's just like, ah. And, someone does the cross thing to him jokingly. And he goes, ah. So, like, puts in his head, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be afraid of crosses. Like, he has to, like, remember. Like, oh, yeah, what do vampires not like?
Oh, yeah, because after on his crazy walk there, that's what I'm calling it, he walks up to the church people. He's like, press the cross to my chest. Press the cross to my chest.
Yeah. He's trying to die.
The bells ring. The tortures of the damned. I would really love if none of that's in the script. It's just him just going to town.
No, I bet there's probably hours of him just running around the streets of New York just doing crazy shit that wasn't in the script. Like, let's just wacky. We got a 2-hour window. Just go do your thing.
Just go. Yeah. It's so crazy. It's just I don't even know how that movie got made. It's like
cheaply
now. It could have been good. I mean, the subject matter was pretty interesting.
Right.
And obviously Nicolas Cage was not afraid to like go crazy and just do his thing, but man, it was but you gotta be. But the thing is, it's not often that you watch a movie and you got a smile on your face the whole time, and I definitely did. I was smiling the whole time, so it definitely helps.
Just disbelief.
Yeah,
well, and I think it was a script that was just written around. So because that like Smeagol back and forth scene where he's on the street having a conversation with himself with a wall, but then they cut between that and him talking to his therapist. Mm-hmm. That's when we kind of realize that his therapist is fake as well. It's this really cool moment where you're like, oh, it feels like the whole script, like maybe the writer wrote that and somebody was like, that is an amazing scene, but that will be the best thing he ever wrote for the rest of his life. And so then he just had to build a movie around it, and the rest of it wasn't working.
Yeah, that was the short film that they turned into a feature.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm honestly, I'm willing to bet that when that movie got pitched, they probably thought it was this really like offbeat, like
super avant-garde,
cool concept that I bet they probably excited them. I bet it probably read really well, and it must have pitched it well.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, at least for me, like you said, Matt, if that movie got made now, it would be like total Oscar bait. I bet.
Probably.
Because I think there's a decent movie in there somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just
with a slightly more serious bent with the comedy, like an American Psycho movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was just American Psycho. If you think about like chasing the girl down the stairs and just like the fake stuff that's going on in his life and his head,
losing his mind, and then just the whole just the over the top 80s and the sociopath aspect. Yeah, it's all right.
It would have been.
Yeah,
I think you're on that cusp. It just the whole Alva thing was what threw me off, but all the rest of it, like you could have tied in something where like maybe the entire office was fake. Like the story is that the market crashed and he lost his job, but he's the one with the keys. So he's stuck in the psychosis of the office is still open, and he's just creating this world of like the people around him and making all of it up. And then at some point you just cut to it and it's just like a dusty office with like papers everywhere and stuff. Like, you could easily, like I said, there are tweaks that you could turn this into a pretty good, almost like an M. Night Shyamalan like mega twist type thing.
Potential.
Careful,
like,
careful.
I'll give it to M. Night. He can make it. I'd watch it. Shit.
No, but I think Matt's onto something. I think the movie was probably written in reverse. Like they wrote the scene with the therapist. They probably wrote the scene where like the guy comes in and stabs him with the stake at the end. It's like, okay, well, how do we get there? And that's where the whole Alva thing came from.
Which is usually a great way to write a story. Is if you already know the ending, getting there is super fun. Yeah. But I already knew that it was all fake when he was giving the coffee to nobody. Was that the first time?
Oh yeah.
I think it might have been the first time.
Yeah, when he goes back in and he's like,
But I just thought that was like a weird supernatural thing, like vampires.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. See, I was like, oh, okay, he's crazy.
Was that right there too? When he's like, "Come on in," and he closes the curtain. He's like, he's talking, and
he's like, "Don't, I gotta go to work."
I love it. Yeah.
Well, and like when we first she first shows up, like he hears the knocking and he goes out and can't find her, and she walks down the stairs. I'm like, okay, well, when he had the door open, was like she like. Because she's a vampire, was she a bat and she like snuck in or something and then transformed to the human form? Like what?
Yeah, I was giving it full credence of like, all right, so there's going to be actual vampire type stuff, not psychosis.
Yeah. Did he invite her in officially? I guess. Yeah. Right.
Right. Yeah. I was giving it way too much like vampire cred. That's like no lore. That's a thing.
It's like, I'm giving this story way too much credit. Got it.
Because the title is misleading. Because I think I'm going to see like a supernatural comedy. Like that's what I think I'm going to see.
Right.
And it really didn't have anything to do with kissing or vampires, except that he thought he was one. So it was kind of like this. Like it was a super phoned in title. When it was just like potential there, but it wasn't good. I mean, like some of the dialogue was because I liked how the vampire lady was this ultra dominant sort of Mother Earth character who was in control of her creature now, and I thought at first I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of interesting. It's going to be kind of like the devil on the shoulder, like making him do her bidding sort of thing. It was going to be really cool. And then it just turned super wackadoodle where he like meets the other girl and is going out with her, and then he was he just sitting in his apartment for hours while she's at the bar waiting for him? I didn't really get what was going on there, and just never showed up because his fake bat vampire girlfriend showed up and made him come back upstairs. It was just weird.
Right.
But it was great.
Yeah. Well, that I think the sociopath aspect, or his inability, his fear to connect with someone. Like here's this perfectly lovely woman that he should pursue and he shouldn't screw it up with. So he just butchers it in the dumbest, weirdest way.
What was he at the art museum? And she was like, "Do you like it?" And he goes, "I have to go take a dump."
I gotta take a piss.
Just leaves. Like goes home. He didn't even go anywhere cool. He just went home.
Looks at her and like, out the exit.
Yeah, gives a text. I love the old school, that part of New York too, the 80s New York. It was like everybody gets around in cars or in taxis. You have to use payphones because there's no such thing as I mean, you don't even really see home phones and stuff like that. They didn't
even have answering machines. Like
answering machines. Yeah,
it was just straight up phones.
Yeah, I love it. It was great.
Well, it kills me too. Like another good, like a glimmer, is the Band-Aid that he wears on his neck. Like you never see the wound unless the vampire is in the room.
Right.
So
that's
it's like,
interesting.
and there's one point where I think he's like about to take it off, but then he puts it back on for some reason.
Right.
I can't remember
Well,
what it is.
and
Is it
you
shaking?
kind of see that there's nothing there for a split second.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so that's one of those like that's a very subtle hint.
Sorry, no, go ahead. I gotta check Art.
No, but I say like that's another like a nice little subtle movie making thing where you have that little hint in there, kind of like when you have in Fight Club where you have Brad Pitt flashing in scenes early before he goes full like Fight Club. So it's like, wow, that's like somebody was paying attention, but just all the rest of it just drowned out the goodness of that.
Right.
Because that's a really good little mechanism. Or even in like we'll talk about M. Night. Like the stuff that they do in The Village, which is one of my favorites, or even in like The Sixth Sense, where all of that messaging is there, and it's not until you know the twist can you then go back and see all the messaging and just be like, oh my god, that was right there the whole time. That's so good. That's one of those things where it was right there the whole time, but with him just being like batshit, pun intended, like, it's hard to pick that up, man.
Right. Yeah.
But
it's hard. It's hard to focus at this movie when there's him competing with it.
Well, yeah, and then like the one scene when he was like talking to her, and his eyes just kept getting bigger for no reason.
It's crazy. So
You're
crazy.
the bottom, the very bottom of the totem pole. And even
Even
if
if
someone
there's somebody
else
who's 1 minute.
one day earlier, I'd still make you do it. You know why? Because you have to.
Well,
And like her just to put together a performance while he's just going,
I
"Eh."
know. It's just crazy. She had to go and do all that.
I
So
wonder.
apparently I can't be heard, so I'm gonna figure out why that's the case.
Oh,
Apparently I've been silent this entire time.
Oh, really?
Good entertainment, yeah.
well, so you'll just have to check it on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Exactly. I know. Wah, wah.
Is this on the
me figure this
Facebook
out.
or on the YouTube?
Was that the cable that you
On
unplugged?
both.
Yeah.
Probably. Well, I plugged it back in, but it's not working. Okay, I got to do a thing. Keep on going.
Yep.
Did you guys notice the shift in his character when she finds the contract and he finally opens the door? It's like, I found it. And you can see in his face, he's like, oh, I can't be mean to her about this anymore. Well, you're
little
too
bit,
late.
yeah.
You're too late. It's not too late. You're too late. I'm going to kill you now.
No, it's not too late. Too late. Too late. It's too
Well-
late, Alva.
Or like the other crazy thing he does when he's hollering for her and suddenly he just like jumps up on the desk. There you are. And then later he's just sitting around with the other people in the office, like just chatting about it. Whereas like now you would be fired and banned for life from this.
Yeah, just
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
yeah,
good
he
old
busts-
boys
he-
club. Yep.
He chases her down, chases her into the ladies' room, and there's even another lady
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
And she's just like, what are you doing? Are you okay? Okay. And then she leaves.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
And then later approaches her like, are you okay, sweetie? She's like, it's fine, it's fine. Yeah, and then they're having like the little chuckle fest. Like, she asked me for a raise. Do you believe that?
Yeah, can
She
you
asked me for a
believe-
raise.
Like,
He asked for
is,
a raise after that.
is my name written on the women's bathroom wall? And what does it say?
Right,
It was
exactly.
so weird.
Well, and that's definitely a theme too, and like how much he can get away with torturing her and
Yeah.
not have to worry about losing his job. All of that, I think, is baked
Not at
into it,
all.
Yeah.
Well, that's
But
sign of
never
the times.
explained
but
whatsoever.
not really anything's really done with it aside from it just happens. Yep.
Yeah.
Alva, Alva. And then when it cuts, the cut to where it's outside, like
Yeah.
in the main room, and then you could just faintly hear his voice yelling, Alva! Before he slams the door and like walks weirdly towards her.
Well, even like his assistant, who's just on the other side of the glass. There's one point where he picks up the phone and boop boop and talks to her. She never like acknowledges that he's like 2 feet away from her, like through the glass. She's always just looking down, talking. It's like all you have to do is be like, "What? What do you want?"
Well, and-
Or
yeah. Another thing she does is when he walks in, he's got the big old like sunglasses on. He's walking in all like, and she just goes, "He's so eccentric."
right.
He like knocks something off one of their tables.
Yeah,
doesn't
he picks up like a
He's
rubber
just
duck
like,
and just throws it in
I'm
the trash.
cool guy. Screw you. You got to deal with me. And they're like, yep, we got to deal with him.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the part that, like, I don't know how you explain that. Maybe you cut some of the B-roll footage to explain that part, but that's why I think it would be funny if all of that was make-believe territory, where he was just like in his own little fantasy world of being in charge of and like untouchable throughout the whole thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, in leaning into someone's office that's empty, going, "Okay, Frank, that sounds good. Let's touch base tomorrow," and then turns around and just starts yelling at an empty chair at Alva.
Right.
That's not there. Yeah.
Well, then even then he had like
I really want to see that
once-
movie, just the one-man show of him. He should do a stage version of this.
It'd be the
It looked
easiest
like a
set
theater
ever. It
piece.
would just be a hallway with like four like frosted glass offices, and he just bounces back and forth, yelling, and then occasionally like somebody, it's just him in the wig, runs across, and then he takes it off. Alva.
No,
And then also
but
he's just on the phone. Yeah.
before offices, and we got to have the couch coffin.
Yes, right.
Yeah, he needs a couch that's shorter than him, so his head and his feet stick out. That was so great. Yeah, he just lifts it and lowers it down like it's a coffin. Ugh. Just like the
Amazing.
cheapest, like an 8-year-old pretending to be a vampire is essentially what he did.
Yeah, super childlike, building the fort. It's interesting too. His apartment had like 300 square feet or less,
Probably, yeah.
because it was like there was the kitchen, and then it was like living room with just a like IKEA furniture bedroom, and then there were 2 doors, but one of them was definitely the bathroom, one was definitely a closet. It's like, ooh, that's a small little joint. Like
It's New York. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's like I thought if you're trying to pitch him as being super successful and rich and powerful, like don't put him in an 80 square foot apartment.
New York.
Yeah, that was the
That's fair enough. Fair enough.
the apartment definitely wasn't like, because I guess I was expecting more of an American Psycho type apartment, which it wasn't. But that's why I was like, oh, I wonder if it's even his. Maybe he's living, or maybe he's sleeping in other people's apartments or something like that. But
I'm
yeah,
hearing a
it was
lot of
great.
noise now.
Yeah, it's me, you guys. That's such a bummer. I feel terrible about this.
But I hear it through the Skype now.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Right.
It's probably
Yeah,
my line
there's-
in.
yep.
So I'm going from my Zoom H6 into the computer, but I don't know if my panel is all that. I don't know what's going on with it. So
I was just checking to make sure that the thud
Oh.
wasn't back.
It went away.
is it back?
No.
No. Now it's
Wait.
back.
You can hear it? I couldn't hear it.
I hear it through the Skype now.
Tell me if it goes away.
Oh, I can hear through the Skype now. Yeah.
I can hear you doing something. No,
No.
it's back.
Back. It might just be the cables I'm using. I don't know. It's kind of a bummer. Sorry, folks.
Is it
I'm
pasta
super
noodles?
excited.
Is that
Yeah.
what you're using for cables?
Yeah, yeah. Pasta noodles. I can hear you.
Oh, where am I? Oh, God. He's looking at the mirrors.
Oh, pasta noodles.
Oh,
That's a little
God,
better.
where
So
am
good.
I? And
Is
then
it
there's
still-
a guy
is it
taking
still
a
kinda
dump
crazy?
in the stall, and you can't really hear what he says. He's like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm trying to take a dump in here. Get to
Oh yeah.
get back here. Go to the
It's
ladies'
back on the
room.
broadcast now.
It's back in the live feed. Yeah.
Well, the whole mirror bit when he's like, I don't know where I am. I kept waiting for them to be some kind of reveal in the mirror. I'm like, nope.
Yeah. Like there was to be something that we were going to get to see.
It's just like
there
if there's
wasn't.
2 mirrors, it's like it's the corner of the bathroom. So the first mirror, you do kind of see him, but not head on.
Well, yeah, it's because it's reflecting in that one, which is reflecting on a mirror back here.
Right. And then when he just turns to that other mirror and you just see him full on and he's just looking at himself going, "Oh God, where am I?"
Oh, yeah, and then the guy is like, "I'm in here trying to take a shit.
Yeah, where
Get acting class or get out."
Or go
You
to
got to
the
give it
ladies'
to that
room.
movie. There's it's like completely quotable the whole time.
That's true. It really is. Might be a good movie to steal our own quote for the show. we're looking for our own catchphrase, right?
Yeah. Nothing
was it?
just goes away.
Oh man, I might have to scour the movie.
Yeah.
It's too late.
I just think one of us at some point in each podcast should just start screaming the alphabet. I never misfile anything.
Not once, not one time.
It's crazy, man. It's a crazy movie.
It's interesting because I think when we first started talking about this movie, you're like, we should watch it and review it. I'm thinking, like, oh no, this is going to be like a one and done. It's going to be just no redeeming qualities, not happening. So the fact that I'm honestly thinking, like, how would I retinker this to make it something? Because there are glimpses.
It's really
glimpses
then
of,
though. It's
like,
really
it has
just American
moments.
Psycho. Like, just go watch that and get like your jollies. Because
true.
I heard someone saying, and I haven't looked into it, that even Christian Bale watched this. And when I want to kind of
really?
tap
Sure.
into this a little bit.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to get your head in the crazy.
Yeah, because it was in that same era, that same kind of weird era that was going on, and he tried to be very well dressed, and it was weird how girls would look at him like when he was in the club. Girls were like looking at him like he was, ooh, look at him.
Yeah,
And
right.
we're
It's
so
just
far out
weirdo
from 1988. I'm just like, would he be attractive in
Right.
1988? I don't even know if that's even
Yeah.
people would look at him like that, but maybe. I don't know.
There are a couple of those shots where it made me wonder if they did go in and guerrilla film those. Like, did they get a waiver from her? Because they're real tight on her chest.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
that's probably what those guys were getting in that picture you sent us, Matt,
That's
of the crew. That's probably the shots they were getting.
Oh right, yeah, the chest
The
shots.
dancing
Yeah.
close-up chest shot.
No, the neck shots.
Yeah, next.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, that they reused over and over again.
Yeah.
Multiple times. How's the buzz sounding now?
It's
still
buzzing.
there. Yeah.
Oh man, such a bummer. Sorry, folks.
Such a buzzer.
Womp womp.
We'll have to do an unofficial official and see if we can pin it down.
We'll do something.
Whether it's
you
a
guys
cable
keep talking.
thing or
Yeah. Go ahead and keep talking.
Well, it's good we're spending it on Vampire's Kiss, I think. That's
Yeah. We got most of it out of the way. So
yeah.
I wonder. Oh man, I think this movie just became my best friend.
Just as a project, like in your head, you're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna buy it,
Tinker
so
it,
it's
yeah.
not gonna end up on the shelf.
I
But it's
kind of
definitely
want
one
to
of those,
watch with the commentary maybe sometime down the road.
yeah, I
would-
would want to do that.
I would love to hear the commentary because it. Yeah, I just would because it's like I said, it has glimmers of hope, but then, that it shows a little bit of, right? Maybe they didn't have a permit for this, or maybe that was just it was just called like the club scene, and they're like, okay, Nick, so we need you to come in and then get over there, take as much time as you need, and he's like, I can do whatever I want, and they're like, I mean,
Within
Yeah.
reason.
and he's like, okay. And then he comes in, and it's funny too when he gets like when he's him, he's upright, but then anytime he's like vampire mode, he gets like the Gru hunch. He like hunches way over, and then he walks in the club and does like the my people, and then when he's walking through doing that, it's like no way, he just walks through this packed dance club, and makes it into that back room or whatever. It's just so weird.
Yeah, because a lot of
So
people
weird.
aren't that freaked out by it, I feel like. And I feel like, if they did do it guerrilla, it would have like drawn a much bigger reaction from people.
Right.
Well, I mean, they couldn't do that now with him in the same style because you'd have a ton of people like spiking the camera or just being like, "That's Nicolas Cage."
Yeah.
Right.
Like just like, like there are a couple extras I saw that did.
The girl
like,
on the roller skates towards the end, she's got like this pink helmet with like a camera or something on it. She's like,
Yeah,
she
she's
just
doing
seemed like her
ads.
own
Yeah.
weirdo personality that just was around at that time in Manhattan. If you're in the East Village or something, and she'd just be there.
Well,
Yeah, and
and
she
like
like
the-
turns around and looks at him when she skates by. She's like,
There
"Oh,
was
it's Nicolas Cage." You can kind of see it.
the lady in the bathroom when he chases her in, she does the thing where like I'm gonna walk at the camera and then just go off to the side, except she's looking like straight down the lens while she's doing it.
She mugged it big time.
Yeah, it's like did you think you were out of frame? Because you're definitely not.
Right.
Just like right at it the whole time. It's a lot of that kind of stuff where they're like, listen, we got 10 minutes in this bathroom.
Yeah,
you got to go because we don't have time to redo this. So figure it out.
Right.
Don't screw it up. Don't break anything or eat a cockroach, you maniac.
Yeah, it's gonna break into our cocaine allotment if we go over time here.
Yeah, it's like if you break this, we can't afford your cocaine for the end of the shoot, and we need you on cocaine to finish this movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a vicious cycle.
When I finished watching the movie, I was like, "What in the hell did I just watch?" But now, like talking about it and thinking about it, I'm like, "No, it's not a good movie, but I thoroughly enjoyed it anyway."
Yeah, it's wonderful for that. For like a trash. Yeah, we have a thing at one of our local theaters like called Trash Night, and this would be a superb trash night.
Oh, it would crush.
People
Yeah,
would
absolutely.
love it. I'm kind of amazed. Maybe it's been played, but
Well, this is like on the level of like The Room, you know. It's not nearly as bad as The Room is, but it's definitely it could be a double feature with The Room.
right.
Oh, absolutely. Well, then you could even do like I was thinking about this for future show type stuff of because we had talked about like spotlighting certain things. I think we could easily do a Nicolas Cage spotlight and just do kind of like a top 3, bottom 3.
I need to watch Wicker Man. I still haven't
There's
watched
plenty
Wicker
of
Man,
bottoms.
aside
I don't
from
know
the
about the top
amazing
threes.
scenes. Yeah.
Wicker Man is so a couple of years ago. There's more than a couple of years ago when Netflix still did the physical media. You could still get discs mailed to your place.
Right.
This was also when I was extremely single. So I was on the 3 DVD 0 unlimited queue plan. So you could get 3 DVDs at a time. Your queue could be infinitely long. And as long as you watched them and returned them, they would just keep shipping them. So there was no monthly minimum. And there's a distribution facility here in Las Vegas. So I could literally like get them on a Monday, watch 1 or 2, have them in the mail Tuesday, and have the 2 more coming in Wednesday. And I was like,
Whoa,
I was basically stealing money from Netflix. I watched so many. And Wicker Man was one of those where, it came in on a rotation, but I think I watched it twice because I watched it. I was just like, what? And then I watched it again, and I was like, oh, okay. Because it was not pitched as like a Nicolas Cage vehicle. It was pitched as like a supernatural.
Well, it's a remake too. Yeah, right. So it's
also
going
that,
off
right. So it's like, it was not like a national treasure where you're like, okay, I'm watching this for Nicolas Cage
Right.
and this other stuff happens. It was like, I'm watching it for this other stuff. Nicolas Cage just happens to be in it. And then, the ending of that, you're just like, it got made because Nicolas Cage. Got it.
Yeah. I love the digital bees when they're on his face. They start like making a beard.
Yeah.
Hold on. My eyes! Ah! Yeah, it's that movie and Vampire Kiss on that supercut of crazy Nicolas Cage. Just
Oh,
like,
for sure. Absolutely.
uh,
Are they not real bees? They're fake bees.
maybe he
I would-
had real
I
bees
mean,
going
might
on.
have
him.
gone there.
They did make a beard, so it seemed like that's what
Yeah.
they knew what to do on a face. You don't think
Yeah.
a CGI bee would do that?
Well, then what was the little darling that came out a couple years ago, Mandy.
Yeah.
Same kind of like bonkersness of just how do we make this movie? Well, we're only making it with Nicolas Cage because nobody else will touch what this character has to do and what we're gonna need this character to do. And it felt like like one of those. I'm sure film people are gonna get pissed at me, but one of those like German Euro 90s films where they had a soundtrack and then the soundtrack created the movie so that they could match it up with like
do a movie
the hard
over the-
synthesizers and guitars and then just red lights and blood. That's what they wanted for Mandy. And you only make that movie with either a no-name who wants to ruin their career or Nicolas Cage.
Yep. Who wants
Has
to
no
get
career to
attention
ruin.
again? Yeah.
Which that has been Nicolas Cage's whole career, basically.
Well, now
Hey,
that's
you know
the thing.
what?
I want to go back and
Paychecks.
watch everything again because I'd always thought of him as like a good actor, and then I
think
watched
he's a good
Vampire's Kiss, and I was like, I don't know what you call whatever it is that he was just doing. Now do I have to go back and watch like Con Air and Face Off and just remember like what did we see in him in Moonlighting and Raising, because he's pretty bonkers
Moonstruck,
in Raising
yeah.
Arizona too.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so,
him and John Goodman. Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
bonkers, but he's still kind of like it all kind of tracks. I guess this one
Yeah.
it tracks too. It's just up here. you
Yeah.
know?
Just 80s
Yeah.
cocaine and schizophrenia.
Yeah, it's just like I've talked to other people. It's like he's got his own Frigida scale, and this is him at F5, just destroying Oklahoma. And so it's like it's all up to a director going, okay, Nick, like we need to get you to an F1. Like you can't go bigger than F1. All right.
I mean, you're still a
Fine.
tornado. Like, you're still going to
Yeah.
mess up someone's day, but, just...
You're still
minor
going to
property
choose
damage.
scenery, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think he can act and he can like play things more straight. I think this is what he likes doing. I think this is like
Just
high
haven't seen
art
it.
for him.
Yeah, I like the challenge.
Because Matt, you talked about how you think that honestly, because I've been listening to old stuff, you think how honestly actors wanted to be in Cats because it allows
yeah.
them to just
Yeah.
fully explore. They don't have to try to be like the buttoned-up lawyer from Massachusetts. Like,
Yeah.
they can just be...
Like, I'm going to pretend to lick my butthole today. Yeah, like, what actor agrees to that and goes, oh, I was caught off guard that this was garbage, Like, they knew what they were making.
But you want to every actor I've always believed really just wants to do musical theater, because
Right.
it is the most extreme of the playing,
It's like the
and
most
so,
orgasmic for playing.
Yeah, it's the most. Yeah, exactly. It's like a really hard workout. It's the thing that opens up all the endorphins, does all the things. So that's what actors really want to do. But what happens to every actor who finds success is they find success in kind of doing the same thing over and over again. Not their fault. It's just because it's what people
typecast.
want to see.
Yep.
And the second that you do something that gets you in the public eye, that's what every script and every agent and every casting director, all you're going to get is that one thing. So when you have a chance to do something that's bonkers banana sauce or a musical where you're licking your butthole, like that is, they want to do that.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh God, I want to do something different, even if it is that, And yeah, but then that at the same time, it's like, it's like if you're an Instagram model and you post a lot of pictures of your butt and you get all these likes, and then you post a picture of the vegan food you just made and you don't get any likes, you shouldn't be surprised. It's the same thing. It's like if you
Right.
always play the bad guy
You're
in a
off
movie,
brand. Yep.
or if you're like James Corden and you're a talk show host and then you're in Cats and it doesn't do well, don't be surprised.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, I was trying to think while you were talking there, his serious stuff, or even the characters that he plays in semi-serious, like, would you call National Treasure a serious movie?
No, he's still funny. in
Very
that. I
serious.
mean,
Right.
he's
He
funny.
is,
so
but
he
he's a
does
very
play it
But he plays it
controlled-
straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, but
What
then
you would
there's
expect.
movies like The Weatherman, which is a very obscure one, but I don't think
Oh,
he
I never
does
saw that.
Nicolas Cagean type stuff in that movie. But the concept is super weird. It's about this weatherman who goes, who's like getting fired. He starts wearing a bow and arrow and walking around New York City and stuff. So
I love it.
The concept is nuts.
We do that
But-
next week.
right? But he,
When it's your turn, sure.
but yeah, his stuff is like, you're talking about Face Off, which in general, I mean, that's
Yeah. But he
like
does
that was
crazy
written
stuff
for
in
him
that.
to do that. Like, it's like
Right.
they're like, Nick Cage needs to make a movie because he's going to lose his house in New Orleans and sell the T-Rex skull. Okay, cool. Let's get him a movie that's all designed about being this like overly eccentric villain who then has to turn into this like super pained FBI agent.
Right. Who then he then gets to make fun of whatever he thinks Nick Travolta's doing with his character. So it's like in a way
Right.
he's just making fun of Travolta
Right.
doing that character.
Yeah. And so, how do you write that? Like as a writer, if you were sitting in a room, like, oh, I've got these two characters. Like Nicolas Cage just curves ball your character scope completely. It's like, all right, well, I'm gonna have Nicolas Cage and then something else. I'm not sure what the something else is yet, but definitely Nicolas Cage.
Can you imagine though being the other actors in Vampire's Kiss, like just being anyone else in a scene with him? Because even the stuff where he's screaming at Alva to shoot him, like she looked genuinely terrified.
Right.
Like in real life.
I mean, that's the thing. The weird thing with this character, he still made a character that, through her eyes, you go, oh my gosh, this guy is unhinged.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
It just looks scary. And that bit where he just finally... so he decides that he's a vampire in his office. And it's all dark in there, and she finds the contract, and she's just banging on the door like, I found the contract. And he finally opens the door, and his hair is just, like, parted, like, the weirdest way, and he's just got this look on his face. And I was like, how do you get into that headspace as an actor? Like, how does that work? Where do you go to get there? And I think one of the reasons why his crazy works in, like, Raising Arizona or other movies is because he also has capable directors that know, like, here's the box that we're going to let you be in.
Exactly.
Like, everyone else's box is like this, but your box is like this. Vampire's Kiss box was like this.
They just took a box cutter and went...
it was like
open.
auteur director being like, just go, just do your thing. I'm just going to capture it.
Yep.
There were
I'm
moments
sure
in
he
that
told
movie
him.
where he wasn't even in focus. Like, that's how probably, they just went crazy. Where it was just like, he's not even in focus, man. Like, you either don't have a focus puller or, like, they were just like, I can't track him anymore. He's completely out of where he's supposed to be. And then there was also the scene where he's in the psychiatrist's office. Oh, it was in the ABCDEFG scene. Where he's spouting he stands up at one point and starts going crazy. And it was
The
like,
camera's
they
like,
didn't
he's
light
out.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
His head goes off
he's
the top.
completely dark, and it's just like the background's blown out, and I'm like, and then he finally sits down. We're back in, so you know that he was just going crazy the whole time, and they were just like, we got to try to catch him, which is not usually a good idea in films of that magnitude, but hey, it worked for the most part. I just loved it when he was walking through the crowd, and he just went out of focus for like 7 seconds. There was just like nothing. They weren't even trying. You could tell they were just back there like, man, I think we got it cut. Like, we're just done. And then they get into editing, and the director's like, I love it.
Yeah.
Keep it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That director was supposed... Oh, no, go ahead.
The director's like, whoa, why'd you cut away? Well, he went out of focus. I don't care. You
That's
don't
real.
want
100%.
the
That's
star
good.
in focus? Okay.
Yeah.
He's blending into the crowd. Let it be.
And you know that Nicolas Cage and the director are the only two guys okay with him, like, harassing real people on the street and walking through traffic. Like, everybody else was totally not on board with that. It was just those two. And they were just like, all right, man. I mean, I can't. We'll do it.
Yeah,
We'll
when he's having the conversation with his
while it's happening.
his new girlfriend Sharon, that
Uh-huh.
the therapist hooks him up with, could have saved them both money.
Yeah.
When he's walking down and having like the conversation with her, it's all pleasant and joyful, and then it turns violent. But there's the people that are on the street. Yeah, you're right. Those are not paid extras. Those were people that are just like going to work or something, because you can see them.
Great.
Like, there's even one girl like in the back of the see her like she like tilts her head and just keeps walking. Like, how am I going to get around this nutball who's carrying a 2x4, and, like his arm out, like talking to somebody? Like, how?
There were a
she's
couple
like,
old guys walking by his apartment on one scene. It was just like a static, just like an establishing shot, and you saw the two old guys kind of, and the one guy just kind of keeps looking, but he's not looking at it like an extra would look at it. He's looking at it like, I think I see a camera.
What's
but
going
I
on?
don't know. I just
Yeah.
keep having a conversation here. I did love that turn of events though, when he's having the conversation with his new girlfriend, his new fake girlfriend, and it just goes from, I don't want to talk about it.
God,
Wow.
after 5 minutes, you just won't shut the hell up. And then it just starts dry heaving. I love just that thing that he was carrying through. The best dry heave was Jennifer Beals when they're in the club and she showed like Dawn or whoever the boyfriend is, and he's like,
Dawn.
I love you. Just like almost drops out of frame.
See, my favorite one was when he was towards the towards the end of the movie when he finally got home and he's got the steak with him and he's about to get under the thing, and I don't even know what he was doing, but he was just sitting there and he's about to he puts his couch coffin up, he gets on his knees and he just goes and then he like lays down and falls asleep. Like, what are you doing? Oh man, is he just doing it? It gets the endorphins going. You know, he was just like high on life.
Yeah,
that
he was
whole
jazzed
shoot.
up.
I wonder how much of the footage that didn't get used of. You know, there's the one scene where there's like the beam of light, sunlight coming through his window, and he's like, "Oh, key lime," and he's like, "No, no," and then steps through. Ah!
Yeah, because it wasn't. None of it was real. So that part, so the acting was even acting.
Yeah.
You know, where he was putting his hand into the light beam and the sound effect, sound effect comes in. Yeah. But even what he's acting isn't real. So it was just, it was constantly messing with your brain.
Absurd.
Of what is he doing? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when he's in the alley that morning, where at the very end, and it's like night had just turned morning, and he's coming out of an alley, and he walks straight into the sunlight, and he just goes, "Oh no!" So he just falls on his knees like he's burning alive.
Yeah. Oh man, there's so much craziness.
But speaking of fake sound effects, you know they didn't put a sound effect when they finally stab him with the steak.
Yeah. There's nothing. No squish, no mush, nothing.
It's like, guys, you forgot one.
Yeah.
Well, when I saw that too, my stupid brain, there it is, was like, that's not how ribs work. you got to turn that 2x4 90 degrees.
Yeah, it's the wrong
way.
It slides right through.
Thick thing.
Yeah. They have it going up and down, east west. But other than that, it was just super funny too, because I think like the guy opens, and this is the other thing that's funny too, is that the brother opens the door, which they've established is just right around the corner from his room, but it takes him like 5 minutes to get in.
Yeah, forever to get in.
So it's
there.
like, what? Yeah, and then he sees him and he's just like, okay, blah.
I like when he yells at him to get up a couple times. That was awesome. I was like, so if you want to kill the guy, he's already down. Like beat him up. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He's
he
like,
comes
get
in
up.
with a tire iron, like it's happening.
Yeah,
I did love
like,
the
stab
scene.
me, kill me.
Kill me. The scene with the doctor. Well, so when Nicolas Cage is at the peak of the crazy and he's talking to the wall and it's cutting between that and him talking to his therapist, it was so good because at one point she was like, "Don't worry, I'll take care of the police. You guys go live your life, enjoy it." I was like, wow, there was some good writing all of a sudden. Like all of a sudden, like a little tiny sliver of really great dialogue. I was like, oh man, that would have been a great movie if that was the case, because it's almost like she became an enabler in the end, where she's like, here's your fake girlfriend now. Go ahead, get out there, go live your life, enjoy it. I'll take care of the murder charges. It'll be fine.
Yeah, he's like, I just need you to know that I believe I murdered someone last night. Oh, people die in this city all the time.
New York. Yeah,
Right.
people get murdered all the time. Yeah, whatever.
It was great.
Yeah, I do turn into a vampire at night, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Well, the catalyst, too, of where he said, I'm going to tell you something, but you can't laugh. And she's like, of course I won't laugh. I'm a professional. Professionals don't laugh. And then she starts laughing, and it turns into this, like, making fun of him thing. It was like this really cool scene where it was just rolling and rolling and rolling and, like, good stuff. And then crash. Yeah. And then kerplunk. No sound effects in the chest, which was weird.
Sorry,
much
my
budget.
dogs are barking.
That's okay. They're cute.
Did they like the movie?
Yeah. How did they feel about
They
it?
want their money back.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple times I should have made note of when, but I kind of had like my iPad like sitting on like a stool next to my recliner. I was watching it on there. There was a couple times my dog, like, she was laying in my lap. She like reached up and like head tilted at the iPad and then laid back down. I was like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Same.
Yeah. I feel the same way. But I mean, just making movies in the 80s wasn't an easy feat. It's not like now where you can hop on YouTube and watch someone's terrible. independent film or something. So it had to have something behind it, and you just wonder, because I kind of looked at some of the well, first of all, the guy who wrote it wrote a few things. He wrote he wrote one episode of Amazing Stories, which I always loved that show. Vampire's Kiss, 88, a movie in 91, and then nothing until 99. So there was definitely like a big gap, and then something in 2005, and then something in 2014. So no real credits, but same thing with like the director, like nothing really after
He
all.
was
like, not
gonna
surprisingly.
direct The Fly, but then
Oh, really?
But then he had like a personal tragedy or something, so he had to bow out, and Cronenberg did that. So yeah,
Gotcha.
and then this happened, and that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, really.
I mean, he's done other stuff, but just looking at the covers, they just look like kind of generic knockoffs of kind of genre.
Like USA Network, Up All Night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty
straight
much.
to video.
Yeah, movie of the week.
But it makes me just think that it was financed by, someone who had way too much money and thought like this was their in to the business. That's what it felt like.
Oh, sure.
Like, yeah, this is edgy. This is artsy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We got Nicolas Cage.
It's that borderline nouveau. Like, we're right
Which
there.
is probably where all of their money went.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I read, it was only a $2 million budget and only made like $725,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, brutal. Yeah, because there was one particular Matthew Farrow. That was the one that I was wondering. Yeah, because I was just going through them. Some people have gone on to do some things. Guy produced like Happy Feet and worked in visual effects on Face Off and Matrix. So some of the people somehow washed their hands of this catastrophe.
Did not
somewhere.
sink their careers.
Yeah, but I loved the lighting at the beginning throughout a lot of the movie. Like it looked so much. It reminded me so much of like high school plays because it was just like one giant light and just casting all the shadows. And then some moments it was like, oh, this looks like a legitimate movie. But
it had moments.
Yeah, it definitely had moments.
It had like
Potential.
I don't know. I'm in a bad mood. I talked about earlier the other two movies I watched recently weren't great too, but this one, I would if, given this in the ranking system, this probably would have been like a 1 out of 5 in that like I didn't like it. Yeah. I didn't like it, but somebody did. But now that we've talked about it, I think if you swirl it around a little bit, maybe a 2 or I wouldn't give it a 3 because I couldn't tell people like, hey, go watch this movie, you're gonna like it. Because that's not a safe
only Eric
one.
would do that.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, but that's
I'm all in
no,
on
but
going.
that's not
You
a-
all must. The whole world needs to watch this movie.
To watch this.
Well, I mean, right? That's definitely like we send this in a space capsule to another planet and be like, "This is our culture."
Yeah.
Yeah, we're sending this to Mars, right?
Y'all weird.
But
What would-
and I would have given it like I might have bumped it to the 2 of like I like it, but I can't, it's definitely not for everyone
Sure.
because it's definitely a hard sell. Like if somebody's walking through. You're walking through like a Blockbuster video and it's sitting on the shelf. I'm going to tell you to grab some other movie from '89.
There's absolutely zero screen grabs, absolutely zero that you can grab that Nicolas Cage doesn't look crazy in.
True.
Too.
Yeah,
So you
he's
can't
being
even like.
gift. Like everything he's
Yeah.
done has been turned into a gif or a meme out of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, they're amazing. I mean, I think the thumbnail that we have is like my favorite look because there's like the crazy eyes. Well, that's the big one, and the teeth one.
The hair,
Just
the
great.
blood. Yeah.
But it was his sad ones when he was just so sad with the teeth. That was the best stuff.
Yeah, when he's like meeting Sharon, whatever,
Yeah,
and Suave him in his mind is talking. Oh, you like Vivaldi and horseback riding and all the Vermont or whatever. I love all those same things. And it just
What do you think about Japanese food? It's so refreshing. You see that? Refreshing.
It's amazing. What would you have you ever given a 0 out of 5 to a movie?
No, there's no zeros.
No zeros. Everything's always it's 1 through 5.
Yeah, a one is somebody's gonna like it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a movie that's universally zeroed. If there is, it's never been made.
You're too kind, Nick.
You're
I
really
know.
nice.
Well, I mean, it's being a fan of the movie of the idea. I mean, there are definitely movies that, I mean, you could argue that anything that I haven't actively seen is just by default a 0. Like it doesn't become a 1 or higher until I've seen it. But you can make that argument. I've done that before, but then that's not fair because like I've never seen Lawrence of Arabia. But so is it a 0 out of 5? Probably not.
1 out of 5.
No, that movie's definitely not a 0 out of 5. It's a great movie.
Right, that's what I'm getting. So it's like that would be
Yeah.
the only. That's like the Schrodinger's. Like I don't know because I haven't opened the box yet.
Right.
It's either the greatest movie ever or the worst movie ever.
It's both
Schrodinger's
simultaneously.
movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should do some. We should do some movies like that here and there. You know, Lawrence of Arabia, that kind of thing. Like
I
dig
think
into
that-
the,
yeah, I think
the
they're,
deep
like,
vault. It'd be kind of fun.
We hit some of those like universal classics, or I don't. There was a time a while back I tried to go through like the AFI Top 100, but when I took my film class in school, my appreciation class, like we watched like Casablanca, which you could argue it's a great movie, but if you're just like sitting around on a Saturday, like, man, what movie am I going to watch? You're not going to throw in
Generally
Casablanca.
not that. Yeah.
Right. So it's like you can appreciate its greatness, but you're not going to be like, I'm going to go to this.
Yeah.
So that's where it's tough. But I think there's some like you want to do something like Gladiator or something like you could probably talk somebody into watching Gladiator.
Sure.
That was like, well, maybe not. Like, no, you could talk them into Gladiator, or even like staying on the Russell Crowe train, like Master and Commander. I know that that's a 3.5 hour movie, but I'll stop. I'll watch it. I don't know what it is about that movie, but I'll watch it.
That
It would be
movie,
good. I've actually
I
seen it.
kept forever going, I'll watch it later. And I did that for, 12 years. However, I still haven't watched it. And I kept going like, I really want to watch this, but not right at this moment. And I've done that.
now.
Yeah, it's.
To
I mean,
this
it's a
day.
long one too. It's. You gotta sit down for it, but it's. It's really. I think one of the things that appeals to me about it too is just like the amount of gravitas they give to naval warfare, but then when you think about the physics of naval warfare and how ridiculous it is, that to call somebody like a master of naval warfare is like, all right.
You must be good at something. Yeah.
But they do a good job. I mean, they do a great job with, and it falls into what I like too, which is where they just give you a universe, they throw you right in it and go. Like they don't explain what port and starboard and aft and all. They don't give you the nautical breakdown. They don't give you the speech. It's just
Which
this
one
is
the
how-
water is.
right. Yeah, they just dump you into this nautical world because you basically live on the boat or on his boat for the whole movie. So you pick it up because you have to, but it just goes, and then the conflict nature inside that movie is super good too. But yeah, it's super good.
I think it would be cool to like do some classics, like do like Citizen Kane or like any of the Hitchcock movies.
Yeah.
Those are
that'd
pretty
be fun.
Those are heavy, but
Yeah. I was also thinking something that would be kind of fun too would be to, if we did do that, a movie that's easily, I'll try to promote it earlier so that, people could watch it and then join the conversation, via, what do you call those things? Comments, things like
Yeah.
that,
The
provided that there's
thread.
not a million technical difficulties like there was tonight.
Sure. Well, and then I was thinking too, like I had a thought about tackling the. And I shot this down in my head, but I had the thought of
Holy
tackling
crap.
like the.
sorry, there's like people have been shooting off fireworks
Here,
downtown, and
yeah.
like that one sounded huge. Sorry, sorry, I didn't mean to
You
interrupt.
were
Just
on
made
the
me
side.
jump.
No, you're fine. Of like tackling like the best picture nominee for like the last 20 years or something, like watching those. But then it's like I don't want this to turn into like an Oscars
Right.
podcast. But then I did have a thought of an interesting topic of doing a segment, if we want to do it, where it's basically just called "Fight Me," where you pick a side and we fight about it. And the first one I thought was the fight would be that Jack Ryan is just Felix Leiter from James Bond. So Jack Ryan is the one who's been like Alec Baldwin, Ben Affleck, now famously on, but he's the CIA operative that just starts out writing papers, but he's essentially, Clear and Present Danger, Hunt for Red October, those kind of movies. He's basically the American equivalent of James Bond.
Sure.
But the fight me would be that Jack Ryan is just Felix Leiter from 007. And then have just a discussion about it. I don't know. Idea.
Well, what if we all agree?
That's where it falls apart too.
Well, but see, I also like the idea of going the route of talking about something that one of us or two of us are really passionate about and love.
Oh, for sure.
Like I love Wes Anderson movies. I know Brian hates them. I don't know where you guys stand exactly.
Fight me.
That's a good fight me. Yeah, that's
that's
a good
a
that's
fight
a good.
me. Is
yeah,
that
because it's
Grand
like, 'cause
Budapest is the best example of shot to shot scening. I disagree. That is a blender of nonsense.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. Yeah.
This is gonna get nasty.
Sounds like we got a good one on the way.
Well, no, but it's the fun part about is like it's having, it's not debate necessarily. It's just educated, fun discussion. Like at the end of the day, we can't change the outcome, right? Like the movie's been shot, it's filmed, people are going to watch it, they're not going to watch it. We can't change it, but we can just talk about it.
Yeah.
Or even how like I'm trying to think. One of the things we talked about in my film class was like we watched Thelma and Louise. And how it's obviously not the earliest or the first movie that did this, but that was a co-female led movie that basically just put men and said, you are all disgusting and gross and we hate you. But you could argue that was a dude movie. That was a car chase, people shooting,
Scott.
explosions. Right. Yeah. That was a bro movie
Brad Pitt.
with two lady leads. So we watched that as like an interesting time of like how has it shifted, because you could never do like Humphrey Bogart couldn't have been Brad Pitt in Thelma and Louise.
Right.
It's just you couldn't.
Brad Pitt couldn't have been Brad Pitt because he wasn't Brad Pitt yet. So
also,
there was
also,
that too.
Yes, also right.
Yeah.
There's no way Brad Pitt takes
that was the beginning of Brad Pitt, right?
Yeah. Right at the very beginning.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He tells
take
a story about that in some talk shows or whatever, and it's pretty good. Pretty good stuff. Nice behind the scenes stuff. Did you guys watch anything else this week?
Garbage Pail Kids.
I own that. It's right there.
Really?
It's
You
right there. I
do?
can see it. I bought it a couple years ago just because. I remember watching it like
when
5
was
or
it
6
made?
times. Oh, in the 80s, like 86 or something like that.
Okay.
Like, talk about a movie. Ooh, that would be.
Is it live action?
Live action Garbage Pail Kids.
It's live
You
action
don't know of
dolls. It's
This? Oh, yeah. If I'm the person that's going to take us in this direction,
Yeah.
I'll down the road. I'll force that one on us all.
I'm a little afraid of the next time Eric's pick comes around now.
Yeah, it's
Seriously.
live action dolls. Like it's
Creepy,
I think
terrifying.
it's little people in
Yeah.
but in like the
prosthetics.
big like cartoony like Cabbage Patch Kid heads.
No.
Yeah, for real.
Ugh.
And they've got all the names like Sick Sally and all that stuff. And
Let's see this.
yeah, what
Look
I
up
can't
some
remember what
pictures.
the plot is like. I don't think
Because
there's
there's
anything.
real kids mixed in.
Yes, that's
Right.
that's the other thing too. It's like it's not the whole world. Like there's real
Yeah.
people in it, and they're trying to like get them back to the sewer. I can't remember. The plot doesn't matter. It's just
I just remember seeing it when I was 7 or something.
Oh, yeah.
And just going, like, being
Yeah.
very
I know.
disturbed.
yeah.
Oh,
'cause
I
had the
searched for
cards, but
Cabbage Patch Kids. I was like, I don't see it because it's not Cabbage Patch Kids.
yeah. How do we start talking about Garbage Pail Kids?
What
I
the-
just blurted it
We
out.
kind of tapered off on this one.
Well, I was asking if we watched anything else recently, and that was
yeah. No,
Eric's answer.
I watched. I talked about it. I watched Artemis Fowl and the Last Thing You Wanted. So for me, it was just like two stinkers.
Yeah.
Well,
it wasn't a good one.
The
huh?
bad thing about Artemis Fowl was somebody else that I follow on Twitter made a very good, funny comment. They're like, I just want to give everyone in Artemis Fowl a throat lozenge. Because everyone just kind of talks like this. Like,
Yeah.
if you're from underneath the earth, you have to talk rough. Yeah, that's some of the costumes.
Disgusting.
And,
That's unreal.
but it's
Oh,
got like great imagery,
I love it.
and it's got decent acting in it and good special effects stuff, but the story is just chopped up and slapped together, and it's all over the place and just nonsensical. And then the last thing he wanted has Ben Affleck and Anne Hathaway and Willem Dafoe and some other people, and it's about a reporter who is studying conflict in Nicaragua and uncovers the U.S. involvement in destabilizing that government. But it then twists into, and this is the worst part about this movie, is that watch the movie. It took me like 15 minutes to rewind in my brain and figure out what the actual plot was, because the actual plot is her father is a gun runner, an illegal gun runner to the Contras in Nicaragua, and he also then develops dementia. So his last job is by the U.S. government to set him up to kill him because he can no longer keep the secrets. But his daughter, who happens to be a reporter, comes to take care of him. His dad convinces her, I've got this one last job. Can you do it? So then she kind of gets roped into this already terrible deal. And then it's about the U.S. government like trying to undo it. And it's just... But again, I watched the whole thing, and it was shot. The edits were so fast, and time is so impartial inside of it that you don't know what time anything really is. And then it's the ending, and there's a lot of that stuff where they'll say something like, "Well, yeah, Bob set me up," and then Anna Hathaway would go like that look on her face, like I know Bob, but as the viewer, I'm like, who the hell is Bob? Like,
what about Bob?
Yeah, like there's, and it's literally the guy's name is Bob, and you're like, where the hell did this Bob come from? That's like so amazing that it caused the actress to go, "What, Bob?" Like, but I don't know who that is. So yeah, and then it ends, and I was like, thank God that was free, because.
If I only remembered who Bob was, this may have been an amazing.
But
movie.
it was disappointing too, because it's like I'm sure that the book that it was based off of is a great read. Because I would assume in book form it's super good, but then the translation to screen and then trying to fit it into, it's probably something like an 800-page novel, and then they slammed it down into 2 hours, but then the fact is, Ben Affleck and Anne Hathaway, all this like, oh, this is gonna be great, and then it's not. so that's what I watched now. So I was telling you guys earlier, I need to pull up something good, get some goodness back in here.
Not a great week to watch Vampire's Kiss.
No, it's
just
fine.
like stack that on top.
It's a barometer shift, you know.
Yeah. So Brian, you been watching anything?
Yeah, we've been on doc kick lately. Last night we watched that documentary Burn, Mother Effer Burn. Even though it's not, they don't say effer. It's about the 1965 Watts riots and the 92 riots. It's horrifying.
Yeah, right.
As a doc, it was good, but there was so many layers to, especially the 92 one, that I didn't realize. Everyone knows the Rodney King part of it, and that's basically I thought that was it, which that's a big part of it. But there's lots of other layers in there, like
with
the
convenience store murder.
Yeah, all one. That. I didn't know about that at all.
Yeah,
but
I remember that.
Felt like the filmmakers they didn't. All that stuff's in there, which I'm glad it is, but I thought they didn't do that great of a job of explaining all of it. Like they would like, well, there's a convenience store murder, but then the cops who beat up Rodney King got off, like, in one sentence, where they would flip-flopped around way too much sometimes, and I'm like, wait, okay, so what happened now? Like, I'm so confused.
Did you watch LA 92 yet? Have you seen that one? So LA 92, it was like the one that came out kind of similar time, I think. Also on Netflix, and it's way better. And it's
really?
It actually gives you all the information in like a really concise way. It's good. Yeah.
But just watching both of those, like, all the news coverage and the people, I'm like, wow, this feels like now. It's horrifying.
Crazy.
Anyway, sorry to be a damper, but we watched that, and what else?
Well, that does bring up an interesting point, though. I went down the rabbit hole like last week on like videos, on like protest videos.
Yeah.
And tell you one thing, Ford's gonna have to redesign that Explorer after all this. because it was like every other video is a police car, a police Ford
Get
Explorer,
flipped.
like trying to run over protesters and stuff.
God.
Like, yeah, they're gonna have to think about that redesign. So anyway, sorry I interrupted you.
No, but it was really eerie to
Yeah.
like watch all that. Anyway, and what else we watched? We started watching. Did you guys see that Dirty John show? It was a Bravo show, but it was actually quite good. It was a podcast first where it was the guy that was a con artist that shacked up with this chick, and she had a lot of money, and I can't. It was
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's ringing a little bell somewhere.
why can't I name Eric Bana was Dirty John, and then I can't remember what the girl's name was, but anyway, there was a season 2 of it, and it's an anthology series because I guess both seasons are true stories, but the second season is Betty Broderick. You guys hear about her?
Mm-mm.
She's the guy. It was I think it was late 80s, early 90s. Her husband basically wanted to get a divorce, and it was like this 5-6 year long drawn out divorce that was highly publicized, and then she killed him. So it's Amanda Peet. And,
okay.
there's only like three episodes so far, and that's pretty good. It's interesting the way they tell it, but I'm trying to hang on to that one. But the first season's actually really good. I was like, because when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, like Bravo's doing a scripted show. I think I'm good. And Natalie was like, no, we should watch it because I think she'd listen to the podcast. And I was like, okay, no, this is pretty awesome.
Nice.
Speaking of
Check it out.
Yeah.
We have one of those.
we got 6 people.
Yeah,
That means 3 people. That isn't us.
Hi, everybody out there. How about
Well,
you,
no,
Eric?
there's 4 of us.
I've been on a strict diet of the G.I. Joe cartoon. So that's how serious I've
The
gone.
80s cartoon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a deep
How is
cut.
it? How's it holding up?
Well, believe it or not, they're very formulaic. A lot of the same things happen in every
Shocking.
episode,
Yeah.
believe it or not. But it is funny. I really want them to make a live action that just takes the cartoon and just makes this like satirical, biting, amazing thing where it's just every character, there they are in all their glory. It won't happen. They're maybe
Right,
rebooting
right.
it right now, but they're not going to go that direction. But yeah, it's funny the topics that they touch on. Even that show, you're still like, yeah, it's all still relevant today.
Yeah.
Like it's still all the same stuff. It's Cobra messing with the climate, or it's there's like one where they're Cobra's secretly backing the Law and Order candidate, and just all these things that even I'm just, for everything that we can watch right now and go, oh wow, this back then was hearkening to now. Even G.I. Joe is doing it,
Yeah.
Just like, yeah, it's everywhere.
Yep.
And like, yeah, why is the military getting all this funding? Why do the Joes get so much money? And whenever someone says that, it's like it's either the Baronists trying to discredit them, or that person never has anything to stand on. Because why would you question why the Joes exist? Of course they exist, and they need $1 bazillion. Shut up.
The other thing I just remembered this is we watched The Five Bloods.
Oh, I was thinking about that as an option for us. It's Spike Lee's new movie on Netflix.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw it
won't-
pop
yeah.
up.
I won't
So yeah, don't
too
say
mu-
anything about it because
Yeah,
I
won't
want
say too much.
to. We should maybe cover that one. That'd be kind
sure.
of cool. Yeah, if you're down for that.
That will be a spirited discussion for sure.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, does anyone want to hear 4 white guys talk about Spike Lee's new movie? I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Sort of thing. I mean, but it's a thought.
We'll be gentle.
Yeah. Well, so if we're talking about what we've been watching, I watched 2 documentaries that I stopped watching this week. I've been doing that thing where I'll give it 20-ish minutes before I'll just call it good. And one of them was it was on Amazon. It was called The Imposter, and there's a guy on YouTube that I follow who's a documentary guy. And he was like, it's one of my favorite, documentaries, and you really need you guys should watch it. So hop on there and watch it. And it's about this guy who is this guy in Spain who is like 22 years old, and he
watched it.
convinces this family. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Convinces his family in the States that he's their son that was abducted like 5 years earlier.
Jeez.
But the kid who was abducted was, in Texas, was blonde hair, blue eyed. And this guy is, Spanish with an accent and, has brown hair and brown eyes. And I was so over like the recreation stuff. I was just so bored with it because as the guy is telling the story about how he did it, it's a very like true crime sort of reenactment thing that just wasn't interesting me. And I kind of felt like I knew where it was going, but I don't know, Brian, did you like it?
Yeah, I did. How far did you get?
I got to like, I think it was like the conversation that he was having with like the sister or something like that.
Okay, dude, you got to push through.
Really?
It's insane.
Okay, I'll push through.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
They dropped the reenactment crap at some point.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah, because the whole family, you got to push through, man.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
I was
Get
just
on
not
that toilet
digging.
and you push.
Yeah. Squeeze. Get some prune juice in your system and go.
Yeah,
But then the other
Push
one.
too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, it's worth it. All right.
Yeah.
Good. I got to find the name of the one that I just stopped watching. It was kind of like, it was an interesting idea, and I was kind of liking it. Where is it? I'll have to find it here. But there was just, so it's about basically like it starts with this brother sister own this property that they don't live in kind of together, and then they're selling it, and so some guy's interested in buying it. He shows up at the house, he looks inside, there's a dead body. Come to find out that this woman has been living in their empty house for a long time, and she's been writing this journal about her experience there. And so it was really interesting at first, but because at first like they're flying, like somehow, I mean, it wasn't made that long ago, but somehow like they're getting the camera in through the window and then into the house, and just some really cool shots where I was like, I don't think that's a drone. It's definitely not like a probe lens. Like, I don't think they, how'd they get all that going? So it was kind of cool, but it's just literally this woman's voiceover reading the diary about like all the apples she ate that day. And I was just like 30 minutes into more apples today. They were delicious. I was like, are we going to get somewhere at any point in time on what happened? But what was interesting is all the B-roll of the house and the property and all the stuff that is so beautifully shot. It's so beautiful. But then the interviews they look old. Like somebody started the documentary and shot all the interviews with like the person up in front of like one of those old school, like the Olin Mills, like the people who used to take pictures in school,
like the laser
like that
beams?
kind of a
Blue
background.
or something,
Yeah, and it looks like video.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it's been cropped because it's kind of grainy, and then it cuts to this really elegant, beautiful like drone shot of so I was like kind of weirded out by it. I was just really overhearing about how many apples this lady ate, so I've just kind of abandoned it. So it wasn't a great week for me, but apparently I got to get in there and
Gotta
watch the
push
rest
through,
of
get through them
Yeah,
apples. It's
yeah.
worth it. She poops them out eventually.
I finished the Star Wars, the Clone Wars animated, moved on to Rebels. That was interesting to watch because there's because one of my concerns early was that because the amount of time that had passed, that the animation would get so good to a point where when I would, because they did the like 6 seasons and then they stopped and then they did Rebels,
Clone Wars, yeah.
and then they came back and finished Clone Wars. I was thinking, oh man, the animation is going to be so much different and terrible. They did such a great job of like mixing it right in, and then also like keeping a phenomenal story too. Super good stuff. So then I started Rebels and was like, all right, this is good stuff. Like just make these. Yeah,
Nice.
they're super
Yeah.
good. And then what's crazy too is like and I knew this would happen, but watching those and then recalling the stuff from like The Mandalorian or the new Jedi game out on like gaming consoles and stuff. Like there's so much content that's like ripped in there that you're like, it's one of those like when you just have a little bit of extra information, it enhances something so much greatly. So yeah, same stuff for even having like the Ahsoka knowledge, and then having all the stuff you know about Ahsoka, and then starting to watch Rebels, and when she shows up, you're like, oh my god, or having like Solo, the Han Solo movie, and like Crimson Dawn shows up, and if you hadn't seen the Clone Wars, that's just a name, that's just a name of an organization. But having watched the Clone Wars, which I didn't do in chronological, you would go into that knowing what was behind it and be like, yes, Crimson Dawn, like you're in it. So
the
it
Pike
just
and all that. Yep.
Yeah, it enhances all of it. It's super good. Yeah, it almost makes me really appreciate Solo. I know a lot of people didn't like Solo, but knowing some of the stuff from Clone Wars and Rebels, it's like, okay, yeah, this movie was probably a little past like general admission, if that makes sense. Like you kind of had to carry some stuff into it. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the last couple of years have just taught us that Lucasfilm should just make Star Wars TV shows, and just chill on the movies. Like,
just make one-off movies of characters we don't really know.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's
Rogue
the way
One.
to do it. Yeah, exactly.
That style. Yeah, and I think we can do that now. At least I hope so.
Yeah.
But yeah, although I'd be down
Montreal
for a recast. I'd be down for like a Lando Calrissian movie. To like, throw in like
to get Cloud City, I would love that story. Yeah,
Michael B. Jordan or something
turn that
along
gambler
those lines.
into a Cloud City owner?
and can we not have Childish Gambino play him?
Yeah, right. It's like I
You
always
didn't like that?
No.
Really?
I'm such a huge fan of Michael B. Jordan, like for sure. But there's just I think that he would have been. I mean, the panache that he's got, like just I don't know. Maybe he must have had something happening in his schedule that he couldn't play.
Black
because I just don't know how he missed that. Yeah, it had to have been like Black Panther or something. Because to me, it would have been the most perfect casting for that character.
My thing with Donald Glover, like he's just doing what's the guy who played Lena originally? I'm blanking on his name.
Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, he's doing a Billy D. Williams impression the whole time.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah,
it wasn't working. I mean, I wasn't really a huge fan of the casting of that movie in general. I didn't really think that it had much, except for like Paul Bettany was kind of like it. Even though I think we might have talked about it once, where I was like, watching, going, Paul Bettany, I love him to death, but are there no other actors left? Is there no one else?
Right.
Does everyone have to be in the Avengers and Star Wars? Is that just how this works now?
Right.
You don't need Khaleesi in this film. Like you.
Well, they already got their paperwork, so you might as well just put them in both
and like
franchises.
Khaleesi is like box office poison at this point.
Yeah, her stuff's not very good.
Yeah.
I'm not totally convinced that like her movies will do well until she does something that's like real not her.
Yeah.
She needs to like just go off, because Terminator is like, it's just like I was watching it going, I don't know if she's really that good. Like what happened? She needs to just like do something completely off the charts different.
I've had
get in there.
This thought when running in the morning of like, if I were to write a movie, which I probably won't, with some of the ideas that I have, which I probably won't, like who would I cast? Like just going through the casting game, and like in my dream of casting would be to take somebody who's known as like a leading lady or a leading man and give them a supporting role that is so far outside of their norm that it's critically acclaimed. That's what happens in my head.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do a mob movie, like if it was two families, or it was an Italian family and an Irish family, but the brothers that were in charge of the Italian family were Ray Romano and Brad Garrett, and the family in charge of the Italian mob were Kelsey Grammer and David Hyde Pierce. So you bring the like movie brothers back together, TV brothers back together, but it's a serious movie, and I think that would just be amazing. Like I think the idea itself would sell.
Well, yeah, and that's
Kelsey.
I think that's
work
where my head
with
goes
whatever
with it,
genre.
too.
It'd be a great comedy too.
Yeah, for sure.
What are you
it's
doing? No, break his knuckles. Nobody double crosses us. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, earlier. Can we do the next podcast all with fake vampire teeth?
Yeah.
We'll do
I
the
mean-
vampire show. We'll watch
Yeah.
it for Halloween.
I've probably
I had a
watched
thought,
stuff,
like-
That's high level stuff. That's like some super comedy when the guy is convinced he's a vampire but buys the cheapest teeth he can get. They can't even talk out of him. Like that's really like when he said, "I'll take the plastic." When he was choosing his teeth, I laughed out loud at that because I was like, "That's funny, like legitimately, actually funny."
Yeah, that's him not buying into his own shtick at that point.
Yeah,
I'm a
basically.
vampire, but let me spend $350 on these teeth because
Yeah.
now I'm a vampire.
How much
everyone.
are these? And the others were like $18. They were still pretty cheap. And he's like,
Yeah,
oh, "Do you have anything cheaper?"
yeah.
It's a lot of work for Eric, but it's like, what if every week our not Funko figures like resemble what we're doing? Like, so we all could have had vampire teeth this week.
Right.
Right. You're welcome. You just got a new full-time job.
Yeah. Sorry,
For
Eric.
free.
Zero pay.
Figure it out.
Next week we're doing 4 weddings and a funeral. You got this.
Well, part of me almost, when I was like, I'm going to put us together, I was like, I almost wanted to put us in those Avenger time traveling suits. Like, somehow that
Yeah.
popped in my head, and I was like,
Yeah.
Or
We
we
can
have
still
the
do
COVID
it, yeah.
versions where I'll just wearing masks.
Yeah.
Right. Well, with
I was
that,
thinking
it's just
Starfleet.
a thing, and I just stick it on
Yeah.
everybody and maybe change
Yeah.
the color. It's,
So you could do like a Starfleet one, like the old school version, you know, like with just the shirts.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I'd be down
the
for
shirts and nothing else.
that. And nope. Yeah. We're just
Fine,
tops.
like,
The way you dress at night.
we're just Smurfs.
We heard you, audience. You know you're asking for it. We hear you.
You spoke, we listened.
All 5 of you. We got 5 watching right now.
At ease, #1. Whoa.
2 and 3, you slow down too.
Oh, impulse
Well,
speed
folks.
only. Okay.
Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Apologies for the what do you call those things? Technical difficulties we had, but hopefully
We'll get those
hopefully it's
figured
still
out.
enjoyable either way. We'll see you next week for another live episode. Live. So live.
Live and in
Or
color.
if you're listening to this on the podcast,
Smoking
on
Hot
Apple,
Nerds.
find us on Apple
Spotify.
Podcasts, Spotify. We are also on something called, what's that other one called?
Anchor?
The
I forget now.
Dunkachino app.
Anchor, of course. But there
Thank
was
you,
one
Anchor.
other thing, that Dunkerchino. It's a great app. All right, folks. Thank you for listening. We'll see you again next week.
Bye-bye. Cue the music.
Should we stop rolling?